Wednesday and be on the Vibe for a 1 hour special. I'm joined by Stan Lynch, best known for his time in Tom Petty and The Heartbreakers.
It wasn't memorable when you were there because you were just, it was flying so quickly, you know, and the parts I remember were the backstage things, like you'd be walking, you know, behind the stadium and you'd see Robert Plant walking toward you, talking to himself, because that was going to be the Zeppelin reunion. You know, it was like, and it didn't, I don't think it went well. I mean, it was not, it didn't, I don't think, I think Robert Plant was very good that day, but I don't think anybody else really knew what they were doing except Robert. He walked out like, okay. And the rest of the band was like, what the hell is this? Because, you know, they didn't have Bonzo, and it was like, so, but I remember seeing these crazy little antics. You know, Madonna was backstage, and you know, and those are the things that sort of stick in your mind, like the vignettes of conversation. You walk by and you catch these snippets of conversations that they were great. They were just, it was hysterical. It was really one panic. You know, it was like a 6-hour panic.
Yes.
Once I started to get a little more confident, and also you can tell me if what I'm working on, you don't like it, and I don't really take it personally. It's like I'm fighting, like that was the name of the band, the Speaker Wars was all about, because they said, that's the only war I'm gonna fight, is what's coming out of the speakers. I don't give a shit about anything else. It's like, I mean, if you tell me you hate my pants, if I have BO, I don't really care. I'm not gonna fight about it. I'll probably even agree with you. I'll probably go, yeah, you're right. You know, but I will go to task if the speaker isn't doing our best. If we're not doing our best, then I'm going to get it on. You're probably going to see a fight inside.
So I'm here with Stan Lynch. Of course, you know, I'm sure many people will be familiar with you from your time in Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, which we'll get into. But first, I want to talk to you about, you know, this new project, the Speaker Wars. You have this debut album on the way as well, coming out on May 30th. You know, of course, you're returning to the drums for, you know, the first time in many a year, right? So what was that first thing that kind of made you attracted to this new project? Like, why now?
Why not? Well, first off, I met guys that were like-minded and fun, and they seemed to have the right energy. And it basically started with this guy, John Christopher Davis, who's the singer in the Speaker Wars. We met many years ago writing in Nashville, and we were both on different, we were both writing for different companies, but we met on a blind date. And it was one of those things where we just kind of looked at each other and went like, man, you're a pretty fun guy. You know, why don't we just, let's just take it somewhere else. And he came down to Florida to visit me. And over the years, I thought I was writing for his album, and he kept, like a little brother, just kept saying, you know, well, you know, come on, man, let's make a record, you know? And I'm like, oh God, who's got time for that? And then he made it so easy. He just said, look, I've got a really fun group of guys in Texas. And then we met another guy, Mike Pisterzi, who had a great facility in Dallas and gave us the room to play and practice and learn our trade and make, you know, record. And so it was just a confluence of events that like made it fun. And I don't know about you, but at a certain point in life, it kind of comes down to that. Like, is this fun or is this work? And I don't know about you, but I feel like I've done a lot of work Not like I'm not prepared to do more, but
Mm.
when it's fun, it's not work. And that's sort of what the band became for me. You know, it's fun. I enjoy it. Gives me a good outlet creatively, and I like the guys.
Mm. I mean, that's what it's all about, isn't it? I mean, I do this because it doesn't feel like work. I mean, it's even though you have to put the work in, you've got to
Absolutely.
enjoy it, right?
Oh man, the time, look, my whole life, I mean, since I was 15, this is all really I've ever done
Mm.
is either play the drums, sing background parts, be creative. Uh, Somehow I've been given like a hall pass to just pretty much do what I want to do most of the time.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean that doctors, lawyers, and things get in the way of that, but the rest of it is like, we're only passing through, man. We're just here for a second. Let's try to squeeze as much of the good out of it as we can. So that's what I'm doing with these guys, and they put up with me pretty well. And that's another thing about being in a band. Who will actually put up with you?
Of course, you've just recently released that single, you make every lie come true. It certainly has that kind of Heartbreakers feel to it. How did that song come about? And was that an intentional thing that you were going to do, like have it in that flavor?
I wish I could tell you that I was capable of doing anything intentionally. It's everything is off script. I mean, you just that even the title was born of John and I sitting on this very porch, as a matter of fact, and me saying something like, wish fulfillment, man, everything I've ever wanted, and all my bullshit has pretty much come to pass. I said, like if I had a checklist, we were doing a bucket list, and I
Mm.
said, all my dreams have pretty much been realized, you know, and all those lies that I told as a kid, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be in a great rock and roll band. I'm going to play drums. I'm going to set the world, It- when you're a kid, you're just so full of it. Or, well, maybe let me take that. I was so full of it that I was willing to just say anything. And John called me on it. He just said, "Well, you've made all your lies come true." And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, let's write that." So that's how that song, it was that innocent. And John is that way. He writes really from the heart and he shoots from the hip. There's no, we're incapable of even knowing what contemporary music is, or, I never knew. Even, back in the Heartbreakers, we never knew. We were a biosphere. We
Mm.
were our own world. And I mean, occasionally we'd look up and go, "Oh, that's a good band." But most of the time we went, "Huh, who?" Because we were, you're doing the work. So with songwriting with John and I, it's very much what's on your mind, man.
The instant thing that I got from hearing that, it has that same kind of, it's like that feel good kind of vibe that I get with, a Heartbreakers song. And, it just makes you feel, I don't know, you play it and, maybe you're going on a drive on a sunny day or something, and it just feels perfect for that. Is that just a style that you enjoy? Do you like that kind of thing that just makes you feel great?
Oh, beats the shit out of feel bad music, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Well, you get bands that are like, quite, I don't know, maybe it's a bit heavy, maybe it's a bit serious, but it feels uplifting. And I think it's a great song for this kind of time. And it has that timeless kind of feel.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can't come out of the box preaching. I mean, who the hell are you? You know what I mean? Like uh, just what the world needs is another heavy-handed, old rock and roller telling you how it should be. I mean, there's a little of that on the record too, because you can't help it. I mean, if
Mm.
you and I got to know each other better, there'll be a moment in the conversation one day where we go, well, that's some heavy shit. You know,
Yeah.
like you really want to, okay, and real life is, as you well know, if you've been around the block a couple times, man, it's, it can get dark quick. It really can. I mean, people come and go very quickly in our lives. And, politics can be, it's just a blood sport now. I don't even know what I'm looking at. So I'm
Yes.
trying to, I can't look. I mean, I don't mean to be that I'm like, I'm not that guy, but
Hmm.
it's painful. That's what I guess I'm saying. It's brutal. And I don't want to hurt any more than I have to.
Yes. Um, a thing I like to do is I like to, have a look at how things all began for a musician. So I like to kind of go right back to the beginning. So
Sure.
going back to the beginning for you, what was that thing when you were growing up where you thought, you know what, I'm going to be a musician and in particular a drummer? What kind of first attracted you to that?
Well, I think, I loved the sound of music. Even when I was a little tiny boy, I'd sit under the piano and my grandmother played piano and I could hear the sound of the grand piano and it sent me somewhere and I could just go over to a key and just hit one key and just listen to it and sound, it moved me. And then once I started listening to records, even if it was like, I mean, this will be pretty obscure stuff like Ferranti and Teicher playing Exodus, on two pianos. I was moved by those chord changes even as a little boy, and I didn't know what they were doing. I didn't know why a minor chord made me sad. I just knew that certain things evoked um, responses from me biologically, and
Hmm.
certain beats made me happy, and bagpipes made me want to go fight, and it was like so. I think by the time I was about 8, then Ed Sullivan and the British Invasion, man. I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. You got to remember back then it was either your radio station which played everything. I would
Hmm.
hear everything from Wilson Pickett to um, Johnny Cash to like the Beatles, all, you'd hear Frank Sinatra all on one station when you were a kid, AM radio. And so music was just an escape. It was fabulous. And like I said, by the time I saw the Beatles and the Stones on Ed Sullivan, I I was ready to throw my life away at 13 or 14. It was, there was nothing else. Everything else was going to be a drag. And then once I started taking drum lessons, and I think it was Charlie Watts that probably
Hmm.
did it for me because I was playing traditional, this is technical stuff, but drummers either play match grip or traditional. And the old jazzers, I learned to play jazzer style, and Charlie
Hmm.
Watts played jazzer style. And Ringo played matched. I mean, no, there's no right or wrong. It was just I identified with Charlie Watts and Mick Avery's from the Kinks, and those guys. It was you lot that did it. It really was. It was British rock that just tore Mitch Mitchell when I saw, you know, Jimi Hendrix. It was the British drummers and Simon Kirke from Free and Bad Company. That was they all played traditional and they had their good posture and they were kind of like they weren't messing around. That was my impression of the Brit musicians. Like we're here and we mean business. And like Eric Burden and the Animals. I mean, all that was just like so important to me. And there really wasn't American rock was a little bit like up with people. It was a little bit like, I don't know, it wasn't scary. Like what was coming from England was like, these guys they're they're pre-punk. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like the
Yeah, yeah.
Stones and the Burt and the Animals and Hendrix. It was like, this is something else. And I want to be part of that. And so by the time I'm 15, I'm playing with guys that are older. I'm already doing gigs with guys that are in their 20s. So my life was already gone. I didn't have a backup plan.
I mean, usually around this point, I kind of ask, what that first band was that that really struck a chord with you. But I mean, it seems like you just immediately kind of immersed yourself in that world just straight away, like just a whole sphere of different bands. But what was there one in particular for you that that just kind of you really resonated with?
Like it was the Stones. I mean, it was
Mm,
like they ripped my head off, man. They were just so mysterious and dark and cool and everything. They represented everything a kid from a small town in Florida wishes he could be.
mm,
And then the music that turned me on from the States was more like what was going on in Muscle Shoals, like uh, it would be like Otis Redding or Wilson Pickett, Aretha Franklin. That got me. And remember, this is before you could even knew what anybody looked like.
mm,
Black, white, I don't know. I mean, it's when you saw people the first time, like I remember seeing when I saw Merle Haggard. I loved Merle Haggard because I heard his music on the radio too. First time I saw him on Ed Sullivan, I thought he was going to be like this 75-year-old guy, and turned this 22-year-old, macho dude walked out on stage, and I'm like, what? That doesn't even make any sense, like so. Music had this great mystery, and it
mm.
would capture you. And I'd sit there and listen to my little radio on the shelf at night when I was supposed to be asleep, and I would just be like my head pressed into it, just it was the greatest thing in the world, and it still is. I mean, honestly, I don't think much has changed. I still love everything I loved when I was 13, you know?
Mm. I think though, from that era in particular, it has a feeling of timelessness. It's as you mentioned there, like the Stones and bands like that, they've just continued to, you know, you get like a 15-year-old now that's can be right into the Stones, right? It's just not
Yeah.
aged.
No, it's great. And then along come the Faces,
Mm,
which for me was like, once I saw the Faces in Free on a double bill, in Tampa, I was a little kid, I hitchhiked down to the show. Once I saw that, I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. Paul Rogers, Rod Stewart, you know,
mm,
Kenny Jones playing drums, Simon Kirke, these Ronnie Wood, and it's like, oh my God, these guys, and they're totally in their prime. I didn't, it's like, and they're probably maybe like 10 years older than me, and you're just going, oh, it was breathtaking. So yeah, like I said, I threw my life away so willingly for
mm.
this. I was not even I never had a college degree I was going to fall back on and be a pharmacist or something. It was like there was no hope. I mean, it was either this or probably die under a bridge somewhere.
Um, I mean, luckily enough, you'd end up kind of with Tom Petty and getting this incredible career. I mean, how did that opportunity first come about?
Like I said, we all grew up in a small college town in Florida, which was oddly enough a liberal bastion in a very conservative state. It was like, and in the late 60s and 70s, um, it's not unheard of to just, hey, let's just call it what it was. It was pretty redneck. It was
Mm,
like, so if you were a long hair, you could probably get your ass whipped just in general principle. And so we were fortunate that we were in a college town which had a little more open-mindedness, and there were lots of gigs in where I grew up. I mean, you could play 4 nights a week, 5 nights a week, and we were all in what became the Heartbreakers was the amalgam of three of what I thought were probably about the best bands around in Gainesville. And when we had all sort of maxed out in Gainesville, most of those guys had all gone out to California before I did, because I was still in high school and I didn't really feel like being a dropout. You know what I mean? That was
mm,
probably one bridge too far. Although I kind of did, but that's a separate. But by the time we all got to California, we all realized we're kind of stuck with each other because we have the same touchstones. You know what I mean? We could all agree on what cool music was. And once again, it was like we learned covers of like Eric Burdon and the Animals songs, and gee, we learned Stones songs. What a surprise! All the stuff that we loved as kids, we still loved as young men, and basically started a band around the same love of that sound.
Mm. Did it feel, I mean, obviously Tom Petty would go on and be this kind of icon. I mean, did it feel from those early years that there was something particularly special with what you guys had?
Well, I felt, I think we all did. We felt that when we all got together, something pretty happened very quickly. Like
Mm.
we didn't have to talk. They weren't a demonstrative bunch. Like we were pretty monosyllabic with each other, literally like, that's okay, all right, good, or nah, So um pretty much from the drummer's point of view, literally I sat down and counted four, and that noise just came out.
Mm.
Like that sound just occurred. And it was really cool. We struggled in the United States. We couldn't make a dent. We put out a record and it tanked. And once again, it was England, London, that we ended up on a tour opening for Nils Lofgren in England, I think in probably 76. And that's where we really made our bones. We were accepted in England.
Mm.
And we literally could tour. I think we opened a lot of shows in Europe for Nils, and then we were going to go home, and the promoter said, "Stick around 2 weeks. You can go play the exact same tour as a headliner." It was that fast in England.
Mm.
So, I mean, we were playing. I don't even know if, like, for me, this was like we had already made it. We were playing like Hammersmith Odeon, and we're playing, Leeds, and we're playing all the gigs that I'd seen live at Leeds. You know what I mean? I'd had the Who. Like in my mind, it could never get bigger. I in 1976 I came or 1977 I came back to the States where we were still languishing, and thinking, wow, we should just go ahead and move to England because we have a whole life over there. We can actually work and people like us, and you know, it was
Mm.
great.
I mean, I was speaking with my dad earlier today who saw you guys in, I believe it was Nebworth,
Mm,
on that kind of tour. And he was saying, it was, he can remember it. It's like, it was a sunny day. You guys came out, you started playing, and dad was like, oh my God, like, who are these guys? And it was like within a day or so, he was out buying the records, And
right.
I imagine it was that impact for everybody that was there, It just kind of that moment of like, oh wow, like who are these people?
Well, England was exotic for us being from the
Mm.
South, and it was very exotic. Like all my life, I always wanted British cars, because I saw Mick Jagger get out of an XJS. So I've got to have one. And until I could afford one, I drove an MGB. You know what I mean? It's like, so it was, it was always like this sort of like a place of great promise for,
Mm.
for us. Like because we really did, we were sort of raised on that. We were raised on all of that British cool. We just thought that's the coolest thing you want to be, and then be accepted there was almost beyond belief. And I I was totally prepared to go move to London. It was like, and our first producer was Danny Cordell, who was an Englishman. He
Mm.
produced Mad Dogs and Englishmen, and he was very elegant and sort of pulled up by comparison to us. He dressed well. He, he was just, he was cool,
Mm.
so, and he's what probably got us, I think maybe his connection to Island Records got us over here, over here to you. And And, we were scrappy, man. I mean, we were beyond broke. I mean, that broke would be one level up, you know. We were damn near feral, when we came there, and it was wonderful, but we were embraced pretty quickly, and it was also during the punk era,
Mm, yeah.
punk and new wave and all that crap, whatever that was. I don't know. So we got lumped into the punk thing, and we weren't really a punk band, but I don't know, fine, whatever.
Um, one of the first songs that I can recall hearing from you guys was, of course, American Girl. I mean, it's obviously become such an iconic song. I mean, can you recall kind of how that came about? Were you in the studio? What kind of happened with that?
My memory, and it's one guy's memory, it was
Mm,
1976, which was the bicentennial of the United States. Like if you can imagine 200 whole years of being whatever we are. And I remember it was the 4th of July is like a big deal.
yeah.
I don't know, everybody loves fireworks and jumping around. So we were in the studio right around that time on and I think that song showed up right around during the bicentennial, and we went in and just cut it live on the floor very quickly. I mean, it was very fast and very crude. The
Mm,
recording studio, I mean, if I can even call it that, it was like the on its the, okay, the drums, nowadays, you imagine a console and there's many faders for your drums and all everybody's filleted out across this console, and the drums are on one fader on one track of
mm,
American Girl. So it's almost a demo, if you will, by the popular standards of, remember, Steely Dan's making records at this time, So when we made American Girl, we were at the height of our technical capacity, which was, we were scratching the surface. So the records have a certain crudeness that is kind of endearing now, maybe.
mm.
So I think, you know, they say like knowing is grieving. I'm glad we didn't know better, because we probably would have screwed it up.
Mm.
Like I think if a band were to try to record American Girl today, I don't think they could ever get it to sound that anxious.
I think it's just that there's something, particularly with that whole record, really. I mean, there's something with that that just, I don't know, it's so simple, but it's like maybe that's the beauty in it. The beauty is in that simplicity. It's not overproduced. I mean, as you say, I mean, there's probably the limitations of that time, but
Mhm.
the I think because it's so simple, it's just really stood the test of time.
It's crude. It's beyond, I mean, it really is. It's like, I mean, pulling those old tapes out, um, yeah, there's something, like I said, if you know any more than that, you would have never done that. So,
Mm,
um, I think the simplicity, that's a more elegant term. Um, but yeah, but I remember Denny Cordell would say things to me like, one of the great quotes from Denny, which is I thought was very British, was I'm in there struggling with drums, and when you're a drummer, you're overstating your case and you're playing way too much and you're making a fool of yourself. And I remember Denny just rolling a giant joint and smoking it and blowing smoke in my face and going, Stan, if you just leave all that shit behind, they'll always misinterpret you as tasteful. And it was like, to tell that to a 19-year-old was, I should
yeah.
have gotten that as a tattoo. You know what I mean? It was like, they'll always misinterpret you as tasteful, which is like, that's the most backhanded compliment, but at the same time, it's like, it's so worldly. Like,
Mm.
don't show them you suck and they'll think you're good. That's the redneck version.
Uh, um, I mean, I imagine for you one of those kind of huge career moments. I mean, Live Aid,
Hmm,
what is it? Around 100,000 people were there. I
who
mean,
knows?
you obviously you're a young guy. I mean, you were the youngest in the band, wasn't you? Yeah,
Well, maybe at
around.
the time, I think Howie Epstein had joined the band, and we
Yeah,
were within a month or two of each other. So we were right. Yeah,
yeah.
we were the little guys.
So what goes through your mind when you're going out to that quantity of people? I mean, it's also on the TV.
Mm.
What's kind of in your head? Because it's like an incomprehensible amount of people that are there. I mean, obviously you'd played big shows before, but I imagine that that would have been on another level.
It's funny when a crowd size goes to that level,
Mm,
uh, they almost disappear. It's hard to explain. Like when you play in a theater,
mm.
that's the best to me, the best concert experience from a performer's point of view, because they're people. You actually see people,
Yeah, yeah.
and they interact with you. They can actually yell at you, and they can, if they don't like you, they could probably throw something at you. And if they do like you, they can blow a kiss, or they can, or a dude can go, yo, or but when you get to this incomprehensible sea, it's like, it's like imagine like playing to the ocean. It's like,
Mm,
I don't know what's there, but we were told that the television was there, and that was always a little intimidating. Like even when you did now set the Wayback Machine for way back, but television used to be a big deal.
yeah, yeah.
Not everybody was on TV. So playing Saturday Night Live and being on MTV and these things, they were fairly intimidating. So I was probably more aware of that. Gee, I hope it translates well to television.
Mm,
But I wasn't, and also those gigs too, there's no sound check and you walk up and you're thrown in the deep end and you really don't hear each other well. And it's not really your stage, it's the stage. And you're
mm,
like, bring out another act. So it's it was a fairly it wasn't memorable when you were there because you were just it was flying so quickly. And the parts I remember were the backstage things, like you'd be walking, behind the stadium and you'd see Robert Plant
mm,
walking toward you talking to himself because that was going to be the Zeppelin reunion. It was like, and it didn't, I don't think it went well. I mean, it was not, it didn't, I don't think, I think Robert Plant was very good that day,
mm,
but he didn't, I don't think anybody else really knew what they were doing except Robert. He looked, he walked out like, okay. And the rest of the band was like, what the hell is this? Because, they didn't have Bonzo and it was like,
mm.
so, but I remember seeing these crazy little antics. Madonna was backstage and those are the things that sort of stick in your mind, like the vignettes of
Yeah,
conversation. You walk by and you catch these snippets of conversations that they were great. They were just, it was hysterical. It was really one panic. It was like a 6 hour panic.
yes. I mean, it's interesting because, fans, I think, associate all of these huge musicians as like, oh, they know what they're doing. They've got it nailed. And you're saying, behind stage, they're all like, oh my God, what's going on?
Oh no, it's a but I love that. See,
Mm,
real good, real rock and roll to me is right at the edge of anarchy. It's
yeah.
it's chaos. It's like trying to choreograph a bullfight. You can kind of hope that the bull will charge the cape, but
Mm,
he may just charge straight at your nuts, and that's the end of the show. But at the same time, you have to be prepared to go, great, because
yeah.
it's dumb enough to stand there with a red cape across your gonads. It's anything, look, it's I find rock and roll at its best when it's not scripted.
Mm,
So that's when you see what the real metal, you see the metal of the musician, like you go, he's working without a net and he's flying by the seat of his pants. And if it crashes and burns, it's like, does he still like look cool with a cigar and going like, oh hell, I give it a shot? Or does he panic? Do you actually go, oh shit, what do I do now? It's like, nah, you don't do that. You just, and Tom was great at that. He was a great guy to have in the band because he was always ready for anything under any conditions. He was, let's go, boys. You
He
know,
just he appeared like so relaxed, at least from the outside. Was that the case?
well, hard to say. I never got in his skin, but
Yeah.
I could sense that, from conversations over the years, yeah, I think he had the ability to slow the world down when things got a
Mm,
little too, when rather than choke, go, oh God, Tom's, I believe his first reaction was, let it go, man, let it go,
mm,
and that is very contagious, you
mm,
know, because fear is contagious as well, you know, and you don't want that. And you don't want desperation. That's a shitty perfume. Nobody wants to smell that. You know, everybody wants to smell easy, cool. Let's get her done. We got this. Those are all perfumes that
mm,
are easy to, and they beget each other, So like if Tom was feeling tight, you could feel the whole room kind of you could feel, oh shit. So and I think he knew that. I think he figured that out. He processed his fame and his gifts quickly, a lot faster than us. Like
mm.
he processed it, what he was made of. That's what I sensed. Like he knew what it was to be a leader, and he did that job.
Mm. I mean, speaking of fame, I mean, how do you deal with fame? I mean, you were a young man at that point, and as you mentioned there, a few years prior, you guys were kind of struggling, and
Mm.
then you become kind of on top of the world at one point. How do you deal with that? Because I mean, some people they break under that, particularly young guys.
I think it's in the raisin, like how you grew up, like, and who
Mm,
takes it. Uh, I never really processed fame or money or any of that stuff. It was more like they were byproducts. And I think I was just happy. Like
mm,
if all I knew was like, oh wow, I'm at a place now where like I can kind of have what I want. I don't really want much, but whatever I seem to want seems to be available. Um, things got a little easier, maybe. Like it's just
mm.
as a, you weren't. I didn't always feel like I was on the outside knocking on the door.
Yeah.
Doors seemed, like, hey, come on in, or and so processing fame for me. Well, oh yeah, here's the other thing. I was only famous really for 90 minutes a day,
Mm.
So Tom had to be famous all the time. I got to be,
It's like that perfect level, isn't it? Like you can have a
wasn't it?
slice of it and then go home.
Yeah, well, there was that. Like if fame is a bonfire, I got warmed. Some people got burned. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I got nice and warm by the fame fire. It was like I was standing just close enough to get like, ooh, this is
It's like the
fun.
perfect level, right?
To me, it was 90
Yeah.
minutes a day is great.
Mm.
Like, ladies and gentlemen, you walk on stage and it's like, oh yeah, you're the drummer in the band. You must be there for a reason. So here you go, boy. It's like, but beyond that, it was, I think during the MTV era
Mm.
got a little more like, you started to get that thing of like, don't I know you? You seem
Yeah.
familiar. It was a lot of that, like, or like, but that was none of it hurt me. I think Tom, for a guy like that, he's so visible and so photogenic and so in
Mm.
front that I think it probably put a little crisp on his skin. I could see there was some fear, and he didn't, you know, he didn't really want to leave the house a whole lot. I don't blame him.
I mean, obviously, at one point you would, uh, I believe you were playing with Bob Dylan for a while, wasn't you?
Yeah,
You did a
couple
year,
years we all went
yeah, a
out with him.
couple.
Great.
I mean, a lot of people, particularly with Bob. I mean, obviously that movie's just come out. A lot of people always kind of they have differing opinion. Oh, he's like this. Oh no, he's like this. Oh, he's awful. Oh, he's really nice. What?
Hmm.
I mean, you've obviously had a first-hand thing. What was Bob like?
To me,
Yeah.
oh, I think he was fantastic. He was the bravest, most artistic, most enjoyable. I found him to be like catnip. You
Mm,
know, to playing on stage with Bob Dylan is everything for me because you don't really know what's going to happen. So
yeah.
it goes back to refer to the earlier part of the conversation where you're like working without a net. I love anarchy. So um, there it was he was wonderful. And I found him to be very, very warm and personable to me. I mean, he was
Mm,
like I, I tell the story. He was nice to my mom.
mm,
It's like that's the kind of guy he was to me, was just a really good dude. I I can understand how people could see a complex man in there because he is, but boy, there was no difference between the Bob walking backstage and the guy on stage. That was
mm,
the same guy. I mean, it was and he was wonderful musically. I mean, what a
mm.
that set list. You look down, you know,
Yeah.
you don't have to practice those songs if you don't know them. Where you been? You know?
I mean, how did that opportunity happen? I mean, I imagine, it's kind of daunting, well, at first to kind of maybe was it an audition? I mean, how
Hmm.
did that happen?
Well, we had a manager, Elliot Roberts, who I think he's the one who put it on paper. And I think it was one of the farm aides. We went to play. Bob was considering having a band because Bob
Mm,
doesn't need a band.
yeah, yeah.
Bob doesn't need anything. He's a standalone. That's what he does. But I think the word got out that, hey, Bob's maybe considering a band or would consider a band. And Elliot said, well, I just happen to have a good one. Would you want to take these guys and go play Farm Aid? And we did. It was so easy. Once again, we got in a room and
Mm,
like I said, you pick a Bob Dylan song. Like I said, if you don't know it, you don't even,
mm.
here's the good part. If you don't know it, you don't even have to play because he doesn't need you.
It's true, yeah.
If you're not sure how to play Lay Lady Lay, it's gonna be fine without you, man. It's not like they're gonna go, what happened? Just, you know,
Yeah.
you can have a smoke break. So it was a fabulous gig and it was no showbiz. It was no bullshit, no 3 act play.
Mm,
It was like, I mean, I craved that. It was actually a high point for me musically. I don't think it ever got better for me.
mm. Was it just that, you know, living in that moment, playing that music? Is that,
Exactly.
yeah.
It was just flying, like, and never knowing where you're going to land and
Mm,
not even knowing how you got off the ground. But it was just fantastic. Like, the last thing you remember is following a flashlight up to a drum riser and sitting down. That was
mm,
the last actual conscious act was like, let me not trip over anything and get to the drums. And then from there on out for the next 3, because it was a great bill. It was Roger McGuinn, uh, and then Tom, and then
mm.
Bob. We were the band for all of it. So, like I said, the set list was just,
Perfect.
I just would look down at the set list and go, oh man, I don't even have to just, I don't have to think. They're embedded, they're already corkscrewed into me, these songs.
Mm. Of course, you go on and write for the likes of Ringo Starr, the Eagles, the Birds. I mean, that's to name a couple there. But how does that happen? I mean, you've gone from being primarily a drummer
Mm.
and then you go and write for the likes of Ringo Starr. So, I mean, where did that kind of transition happen?
Well, the whole time I was in the band, I was writing. I
Mm,
just wasn't particularly any good, and we had a really good songwriter. So, if your song wasn't better than one of those,
mm,
we nobody cared. So I had I was finding outlets for the my work, for the other side of my life. The other brain was doing other things, and it's a natural progression. Like I said, once again, refer back to the early conversation. There's been no plot or plan, or I can't even I can't put it on a graph. It was I liked writing, and I would always have a little studio at home, some version of it that would grow with me, like, oh, now I should have a better studio, I can do better. And
mm,
um, over the years, I would just keep trying to write. And then the real step for me was Don Henley inviting me. Don and Dan Korchmeyer were making Don's solo album, his second solo album, and I got an invitation to come to the studio. And I think Danny said, "Hey, if you got anything you could contribute to one of these songs," and that was a big step up.
mm,
When Don took me under his wing and said, "This is my process. Uh, if you'd like to be part of it, here's how I do things." Like, and they let me serve an apprenticeship, literally. I mean, they let me hang around damn near a year and watch, and I learned an awful lot from those guys. And
mm,
meeting other musicians through them, of course, because those two guys, uh, the cream of the crop came through, and me in the cheap seats. I'm getting to watch and audit the process of everybody. And it was a great education for a guy in transition. So when my tenure with the group was over, Don literally called me and said, "Yeah, I heard." He goes, get your shit together, coming out to California, and let's get working." So he has constantly, as a big brother, um, cracked doors for me, you know,
mm.
and just said, if you got what it takes, run through, come on, and that is that's a big deal. Gatekeepers in your life are a big deal.
Mm.
You know,
I mean, with the likes of, Ringo Starr and such, did you kind of have songs already prepared, or do they come to you? How does that work?
well, with like Ringo, we heard that he was making a record. We heard Don was producing it,
Hmm.
and obviously, I'm a big fan. It's like it's a dream. You're not when you're writing a song quote for Ringo,
Hmm.
you don't think you're actually going to get it.
Hmm.
I mean, well, that's been my whole life. I don't really think it's going to happen. It's a wish. It's a lie that I'm going to make come true, if I may.
Hmm.
It's I'm going to write a song for Ringo. And so I got together with one of my buddies and we thought about it a little bit. We thought about maybe his range and, well, if I could sing it, perhaps it would be
Hmm.
appropriate. We're not going to get Celine Dion to sing. It's like we know he's got a nice bandwidth and a place and we sort of tailored a song that we thought might be appropriate. And Don was heard it and said, "We'll cut it."
Hmm.
So lots of it really takes a village to make anything happen in this world, you know? Like I can't take credit for anything other than just being a fire starter. And then a lot of people bring things to the fire and blow on it and say it and talk about it. And it's a it's a lot of effort, to get anything going in this world. That's been my impression. Um, I think we all stand on a lot of shoulders.
You obviously mentioned a bit earlier there that, you'd learned so much in that period when you were kind of learning how to write. Was there something in particular that was kind of a flick of a switch kind of moment for you where it's like, oh, that's really useful. Like, I'm really going to use that.
It one day I woke up and I trusted myself.
Mm,
And that was a big flick of the switch for me. It was, and I didn't even really know it happened, but I remember like I think it was some maybe a co-writer in the room said, "Oh, is this good?" or
mm,
something like that. It was one of those like, "Is this any good?" And I'm like, I went like, I, "Oh, only an asshole would ask that question. I'm enjoying it. Like, who cares if it? I'm having like I'm enjoying this. I'm going to
mm,
see it through. If you have to keep second guessing it, you should probably leave because I'm going to see this through." And when I realized I was becoming that guy, those were the moments. And and when you're with someone who's better than you and they're writing and you actually do something and they go, "Hey, what was that?"
mm,
And so those moments started to happen more. And I go, "Well, okay, that's validation." And because a lot of being creative, once you get the muscle figured out, it's you have to have faith and you have to have without being you know full of crap, you just have to at least present. You have to have some confidence in what
mm,
you're doing. And once I started to get a little more confident, and also you can tell me if what I'm working on you don't like it, and I don't really take it personally. It's
mm,
like I'm fighting, like that was the name of the band, the Speaker Wars was all about, because they said it's the only war I'm going to fight. It's what's coming out of the speakers. I don't give a shit about anything else. It's like, I mean, if you tell me you hate my pants, if I have BO, I don't really care. I'm not going to fight about it. I'll probably even agree with you. I'll probably go, yeah, you're right. But I will go to task if the speaker isn't doing our best. If we're not doing our best, then I'm going to get it on. You're probably going to see a fight inside of me. If like, like, why didn't you do better than that? Well, I thought it was pretty good. Like, well, pretty good ain't what I'm going for. So
mm,
I like being inspired, and guys like Henley taught me that, like, you got to be hard on yourself. Sometimes you're hard on other people, but if you're hard on yourself and you're demanding the best from yourself, that's the place you want to be. That's the only time I draw a line. I'm a little less frivolous in my life, is like when I'm trying to get something good out of myself, I'm a pain in the ass.
No, I completely agree. I get it. You got to
I
kind
know.
of push.
Well, anybody who's actually done anything with their lives, that there's usually a moment in that where you go, all right, I can't bullshit. There's
Mm,
something I could be better, and there's someone better. And I realize there's so many people so good at music and they're really brilliant. And I get to work with some of them. And I'm never be that good, but I can be as good as I can be. I don't have to be lazy. I don't have to be
mm,
afraid of the work. I can dive right in. Still got the energy. If I need to play that damn drum track for 9 hours, that's what I'm going to do.
mm. I think that's a great thing. I mean, the thing that I kind of always have taken is, there might be people out there that are better than me, but could they work as hard as me?
Precisely.
And I think it's that commitment, isn't it? Like if you're just working even harder than that person that's better than you,
Mhm.
you'll come out on top, I think.
Well, I think it's been proven.
Mm,
It's like, and I have tremendous tolerance for repetition.
mm,
I think that's um, more so than most people I know. It's like a lot of guys can do it 10 times and then they go, well, I guess that's pretty good. And I'm like, man, I'm just getting started.
mm.
So it's, so repetition to me is, it's skill building, and it's and I'm not afraid of it. If I was a natural genius and I could do it the first time, shit, I would. Usually doesn't have, like you said, I'm a hard worker.
Mm,
I'm an eager beaver. I'll get in there, man.
mm. Um, speaking of this upcoming Speaker Wars record, is there one like a particular track that fans can look out for when it comes out? Is there a personal favorite for you off the record?
Honestly, I didn't really even, I went to committee when we picked the songs. We had so many songs.
Mm,
And being in a band, you have to let go.
yeah.
So I like, I, I mean, I know it sounds silly.
Is it
I like,
like picking your favorite kid? Yeah.
no, I just like, I love, there was a reason they all ended up on the record and that we finished them. I thought they were cool. I thought there was something cool about all of them. But this is where the world will tell you. You know what I
Mm,
mean? At some point you gotta spit in the sand and go, all right, that's what I got. And the world will step over it, or some people will go, wow, that's pretty cool, or they'll ignore it. And this is the proving ground. You finally have to you man up and you put your, it's like nut up or shut up or whatever it's like, here it is. It's like, um, so you put out a record and you go, and hopefully we'll get enough people. And thankfully, I'm grateful for you and your listeners. Listen, you tell me, man. You know what I
mm,
mean? I mean, what I want is, I have managed expectations, of course, but I would love to be able to lie to you and say, we're going to get enough people that like this that we'll be on the road and I'll see you in London.
mm.
Make that lie come true. That would be great for me. You know, I would love to play because that's what's missing in my life. I can make music, all day, but I love being in a group where the audience is the other member in the band, and they
Mm,
tell you the energy level you're going to do tonight. If they're ready for energy, I'm going to leave it all on the, we'll leave it there. If you guys are being cool and you don't really get in, you're not, I love that. I love the boundaries that an audience can either give you or give you no limits. And you can't get that anywhere else, but if you can get it in front of people. And that's the thing that I have missed the most since being in the Heartbreakers. That was the
mm,
part, I sort of had to cut that arm off, you know what I mean? Like, and it was like, that was a loss. So I'd like to grow that one back.
mm. I mean, has it been a long time since you've been out kind of touring?
Well, I went out with the Heartbreakers guitarist Mike Campbell.
Mm. Because
He
you
had
had that reunion, didn't you?
Yeah, we went out and played. I went out and played. Well, I subbed for him. He has a
Mm,
great drummer, Matt Log. He's out playing with AC/DC now.
mm,
So, um, and Matt's great. But Mike called me. He said, Matt's going to take a break. Would you come out and play some shows? And so that was really the first time I had gotten me out a drum set in many, 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 many years in front of people. And it was fun. And Mike made it fun because, I got a lot of history with him.
mm,
So that was nice and silly. I got, and it's a different stakes of the game now too. It's not make or break. I'm not like
mm,
worried that the band's going to fall apart and I'm going to be, it's like the stakes of the game are, can we have some fun? Have we got good songs? Have we got good players? Can we make a fist? And can we go out and do our work? And I don't want to disappoint myself and I don't want to disappoint the guys in the band. So and I would hate to disappoint an audience, but I don't think we would if we thought we were being pretty good.
mm,
I think that's once again, it's the confidence thing. I think if we're sounding pretty good, I think other people may think so too. So either I'm
mm.
crazy or I'm not.
Um, a question was like to finish on that I ask every guest that comes on. It's a bit of a hypothetical one. Uh, if you could work with one musician from the past and one
Hmm.
from the present, who would they be? Is there anybody? I mean, obviously you've worked with some amazing people over the years, but is there anybody in particular that you think that would be interesting?
Oh man, there's so many.
Everybody goes, "Oh my God." It's,
You know, you put me in a room. I mean, could I get in a room with John Lennon?
you could, you have this control. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Put me in a room with John, but he don't make it where he's thinking, who the hell is this clown? You know what I mean? But it's like, but yeah, of course, that level of um, just there's a gift in his
Mm.
voice and a gift in the way he phrases and thinks. I'd love to be privy to that process. So yeah, there's one from the past and from the present. You know, I mean, I'm so old school. I'd say like Stevie Winwood. You know what I mean? I'm like, it's like, there any of my, those Paul Rogers,
Mm.
it's like the voices that sent me, as a kid, they're still there. They're still pulling me. They're like,
Mm.
you know, I hear that, but yeah, okay. I'll take John Lennon and Stevie Winwood for 100.
Mm.
I'll take it. Can I have it?
Yeah, I mean there are some great choices there. I mean, it's I mean, obviously the Beatles is just such a game-changing band, isn't it? It just changed everything. I mean, and anybody that I spoke with from that time, they always say either the Shadows or the Beatles
Mhm.
as like the two game changers. That they're the
Sure.
most common, and I think it's hard to kind of top that, isn't it?
Never will.
Yeah.
You never will. It won't be hard. It'll be impossible. Let me correct you.
Yes, it's probably right.
No, it's you'll never find that, and plus that moment in time where the
Mm.
world just couldn't. It was the
In the
Big
space
Bang.
of just a few years, just
Oh,
everything changed, didn't it? It's...
really, in the space of 4 minutes on Ed Sullivan for us over here. It changed overnight. I mean, every kid before Ed Sullivan that night, the next day, every kid had combed their hair over their ear
Yeah.
and literally were looking to like dress and anything. It was it was fantastic. It's great. I feel really fortunate that I came of age in that influence. It was
Mhm.
like really nice. And there were gods walking among us, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you got something fun, and I'm very grateful that you took the time, and I appreciate you turning your listeners on to us. Thank you.
Oh, thanks so much for your time, Sam. I mean, it's been such a great chat. Obviously for those out there that want to pre-order the new Speaker Wars album, you can do via the link in the description below. Um, are you doing vinyl this time around?
Yes, we're doing vinyl.
'Cause
We're doing
we're vinyl people here.
good. It's going to be good vinyl too. We took our time with it. The
Mm,
record companies, German record company, is very, very meticulous about their vinyl, and we've seen a couple of test pressings, and it's not like they're just doing
mm,
vinyl. I mean, they're really these guys. We were very, very impressed with the technical end of the production of the record, and they took it very seriously, and yeah, so I'm looking forward to that too. I'm kind of curious to see what I get back.